When I have the power to look at everything that happens to me as an opportunity to grow, an opportunity to learn, an opportunity to better understand myself and others, wouldn't that be a fantastic place to be?
Hi, and welcome to Lead Well.
Have you ever heard the saying, what if this happened for you and not to you? I find this is a really interesting point of view because what it says is that whatever happens to us in our lives, when we look back at it, in so many cases, we can either laugh about it, or we can say that we have learned from it, or we can even say that it was a blessing instead of the curse that we initially thought it would be. And being able to do so, being able to look at things that happen to you in the moment, having that perspective of saying, well, maybe it's not so bad as it first seems, and maybe it's not so bad as my little saboteurs are telling me it is. What could that be? Because when I have the power to look at everything that happens to me as an opportunity to grow, an opportunity to learn, an opportunity to better understand myself and others, wouldn't that be a fantastic place to be? Now, in positive intelligence, last episode, I talked about the idea of having little saboteurs that are telling you that you're not right, that things are going wrong. And we also discussed how to actually get rid of those saboteurs, or at least make them more quiet for the time being. Now, while the saboteurs are judging, of course, when something happens to me, I want to be able to actually look at it so that I can learn from it and grow from it. And this looking at it in positive intelligence, we call discernment. So rather than judgment, we want to discern things. We want to look at them in detail to understand them with a clear mind, with a rational mind, with a sage mind. So, with that perspective of our inner wiser self, instead of those saboteurs, of our authentic selves. When I talk to coachees, they often tell me, well, Christine, when I'm emotional, I'm reacting in a way that it's really not me. I wouldn't want to be that way. So we want to be rational people, looking at things with empathy, looking into what could be the ideas that we get from it. And now let's have a look into how positive intelligence defines that sage and defines the powers that we think our inner sage, our inner wiser self needs to then be able to turn every situation that happens to us in an opportunity to grow. Now, when we think about the sage and the sage perspective, the sage for me is that part of me that is associated with my positive emotions, with peace and calm and the clear headed focus. It's also the part of me that's really creative. For example, when I'm doing my little Neurographica drawings, I want to be in a sage mode. I don't want to be in that saboteur mode, torn apart between anger, frustration, or anxiety. And my sage also has the big picture so that I can make the best decisions ever. That is why it's so important to strengthen my sage and to strengthen the five powers that we say our sage should have. Now let's look into what are those 5 sage powers. The first sage power is explore. When something happens to me, what I want to do is not freak out, is not get angry or anxious. It's take a step back and look at the situation as if I was a scientist. Literally, very, very curious. Look at the details. What if I was not involved? What if that happened to someone else? If I could emotionally detach myself from the situation, what are the facts that I can see? What is really happening there? That is what I want to look into. And I can spend with a coachee of mine, I can spend like 15 minutes on that, literally identifying what are the facts, what actually happened, to then be able to empathize. A lot is said about empathy, having empathy, being an empathic leader. Now, what does this actually mean? And how can I become empathetic? Because that's a gift as well. And it's a power. So I can strengthen that power. Now, when you look back and think back to you being a very innocent child, around 3 to 5 years old, maybe you have a picture of yourself at that age that you can look at. And look at that face there. That's a very, very loving face, very innocent, that loves the world and loves him or herself. And so, if you could assume that position, look through the eyes of such a small child, every person is lovable, every person is wonderful, especially oneself. Because the one person we're mostly critical with and most critical with are ourselves. So, what if we could assume this position of the most loving person on earth looking at us in this current situation, and then also look at everyone else in what just happened through those loving eyes? That's a wonderful exercise that I invite you to do. Now, the third power that we think a sage person should grow is navigate. Navigation is giving me the North Star, giving me like a compass of what should my behavior be, what should my actions be in a certain situation. And how do I get there? First of all, I can work on a vision for my life, really understanding my values. What are my values that I'm living for? What is important to me at the moment? That already will give me a great indication of how to steer my behavior and actions. Another way of doing it is you can think about you sitting in an armchair at a very old age, let's say 90. You're perfectly fine. And you're looking back on your life and on this particular situation that you're just going through. From that perspective of your older or elder, wiser self, what would you tell your younger self? What should they stop doing? What should they start doing? How should they look at the situation? So, while empathize invites you to look at the current situation through the eyes of your innocent child, the navigate power is looking at the situation through the eyes of your elder self and giving you advice from that perspective. The fourth sage power, we call that innovate. And there is a great game that I learned when I went through my NLP training. and that is called the yes and game. So we all often say yes, but. And what happened when I say but? Whatever I say but, what I said before that, I more or less dismiss it because I have a different opinion and I have something different to say. Now, when I want to find real innovative new solutions, the yes and game is to say, okay, whatever is said, whatever I'm thinking, I'm adding to that. Instead of saying yes, but I'm saying yes and, which leaves the first part that is said and that I might have said intact. And I'm adding to it, I'm modifying it. And that's a wonderful game. You might want to try this out. So catch yourself whenever you say but and think whether you could have replaced it by an and. And going forward, make it a challenge to no longer use the word but replace it with an and see how that will change your communication. In positive intelligence, we go one step further. Here, what we're saying is that we're playing what I like about the idea is and. Because whatever is happening, whatever someone else is saying to us, there will always be a little bit of truth in it. And so the PQ way of innovation, of innovating, of this stage power of innovate is to say, okay, now let's make a game. You're asking me in this situation, what can I do? And I give you a suggestion. Well, to have a better relationship with your animals, you could spend 24 hours with them. And your immediate reaction, I guess, is, well, she's crazy now. No, I can't because I cannot spend the entire time with my horse, for example. And with the yes and game and with the what I like about your idea game is to say, okay, I could respond to this idea with, well, Christine, what I like about your idea is that this would really give me very valuable time with my animal. And maybe I can do it once. I can try it out once. I take a day off and I definitely spend 24 hours with my horse. What would that mean? And so I would then reply, what I like about your idea is that you would have the opportunity to get to know your horse better. And you might want to da-da, da-da, da-da. So this is the what I like about your idea game. And what it does is it acknowledges whenever I'm talking to someone else, and also when I'm talking to myself, I acknowledge that there is a little bit of truth, a little bit of something that I can work with, something that I can be okay with in whatever is said. And I'm looking for that. That is creating a much stronger relationship because instead of fighting each other, we're having a common ground and we're building upon each other. Now, what is the fifth sage power? The fifth sage power is activate. Because if I have everything in my head, doesn't help. Believe me, my podcast, I had that in my head for about 4 years. Didn't help you because you couldn't listen to it. So if I had not taken that step of activate and actually sitting down, recording an episode, it wouldn't help. It wouldn't help have my ideas here. We all have ideas. The difference is to put them into action. Think about what is the very first step that you can take to become active, to go towards, to move towards your desired outcome. It can be a really minor step. There is this idea of micro steps that you start very, very small And then you add maybe a percentage, and then you add another percentage. And while it seems so small, think about it, to add 1% per day, it's 365 times adding 1% per day. And you're not adding to 1%, you're adding to the sum every day. So that's massive. So instead of being held back because you see the whole mountain of things you have to do before you, think about it as, what is the very first minor step in the right direction that I can take? And maybe already think about the second step. And maybe also about the third step. But the important thing is to actually start moving and start getting on your way. So those were the 5 sage powers: explore, empathize, navigate, innovate, and activate. And of course, again, it's a matter of training, it's a matter of exercise to strengthen them. And I can only invite you to look further into this and get your sage really, really powerful so that you can turn every situation in something that is happening for you and not to you. Oh, that was it for this week. And may you always lead well yourself and others. And I look forward to hearing your stories about your sage strength. Bye for now.
This was Lead Well. Now, what is the one thing that you're taking away from this episode? Please share in the comments below, and do share the podcast with your friends and family, but only if you like it.